Hey guys, tonight we begin with the life of a man who had it all: charm, talent, and absolutely no money. The medieval bard, a wandering musician who could rhyme love with dove and still starve to death doing it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes to a world that smells like boiled cabbage, wet goat, and the faint perfume of generational disappointment. The year doesn't matter. Pick any between 1100 and 1400. The difference is mostly how many teeth your neighbours still have. Your home is a one-room hut with a dirt floor that doubles as a kitchen, bedroom, and occasional toilet. When the rain turns the path outside into soup, the roof leaks in exactly 3 places: over your straw pallet, over the cooking pot, and directly onto your father's only pair of shoes, which he guards like a dragon hoarding gold. You learn early that water finds the worst possible spout to drip, and that hope is a luxury taxed heavily by reality. Your parents are peasants, which in medieval terms means professional background characters in someone else's epic. Their days begin before dawn and end when their bodies give out, usually around the same time the sun forgets to shine. Your father's back is a map of every furrow he's ever ploughed, each ridge a reminder that the Lord's land doesn't plough itself. Your mother's hands are cracked from laundry, milking, and the occasional desperate prayer that the next child survives infancy. You are their third, which means you're old enough to work but young enough to be considered disposable. Congratulations, you've already peaked. But you're different. Not in the chosen one glowing sword kind of way. More like the village idiot who can memorize things you hum while hauling water. You tap rhythms on the fence posts. Once you rhyme muck with luck, and your mother crosses herself so hard she nearly dislocates her shoulder. Your father grunts that music is for people with spare time, which is medieval for people who aren't us. The local priest eyes you, like you're one bad limerick away from eternal damnation. Still, you notice something magical. When you sing, the world pauses, the goats stop chewing, your little sister stops crying, even the chickens tilt their heads, which is basically a standing ovation in poultry terms. You're maybe 8 when the travelling performers roll into your village like a fever dream. Their wagon is painted in colours so bright they hurt your eyes. Crimson, saffron, a green that doesn't exist in nature. They smell of ale, sweat, and something dangerously close to freedom. The juggler tosses apples higher than the church steeple. The fire-eater belches flames that turn night into noon for a heartbeat, and the bard, oh the bard, he's everything your father isn't. Clean, confident, and wearing shoes that match. He sings of knights who slay dragons, maidens who definitely bathe, and kings who share their gold. The villagers laugh until they cry, cry until they laugh, and for one glorious hour forget that tomorrow they'll be back in the mud. You stand at the edge of the crowd, barefoot and mesmerized. The bard's lute gleams like a holy relic. His voice wraps around the square like a warm blanket. When he finishes, the applause is a thunderstorm. Someone tosses him a silver coin. Silver, not copper, which in your world is basically a miracle. You decide then and there, this is your destiny. You will sing your way out of this hut, this village, this life. You'll own shoes, maybe even 2 pairs. Your parents naturally are thrilled. Kidding. Your father wanted you to inherit the family plough, a splintered relic that's been repaired so many times it's 30% original wood and 70% spite. Your mother suggests the monastery, where starvation comes with a side of salvation. But you've tasted possibility, and it's sweeter than turnip stew. You start small, you carve a flute from a reed, and nearly lose a finger learning to play it. You write your first song about a cow that refuses to milk, which is basically your autobiography set to melody. The villagers laugh, some with you, some at you, but laughter is laughter. Someone throws a turnip, you dodge progress. You perform at weddings, funerals, and that one time the miller's wife gave birth in the middle of your ballad about lost love. The baby cried in harmony. You take it as a sign. By 12, you're the village's unofficial entertainment. You know every local scandal, every ghost story, every reason why the blacksmith's donkey hates Tuesdays. You turn them into songs that make the old women cackle and the young men blush. You still sleep in the hut, still eat the same grey slop, but now you dream in chords. You practice in the fields, serenading scarecrows who never heckle. You memorise the travelling bard's songs note for word, then tweak them just enough to avoid lawsuits. Medieval copyright is a rusty dagger and a bad attitude. Then one summer day that smells of hay and distant thunder, A lone bard rides into the village square. He's older than the first, leaner, with a lute strung with wire that sings like angels on a bender. He hears you humming while mucking stalls and stops mid-stride. "Kid," he says, "you've got a voice like a drunk nightingale, but it's a start." He offers apprenticeship. You don't hesitate. You pack your entire life into a sack, one spare tunic, a crust of bread, and the flute you carved. Your mother cries. Your father grunts something that might be pride or indigestion. The priest mutters about the devil's payroll. You leave before anyone changes their mind. The road is your new teacher, and it's brutal. Your master, self-titled Maestro Gregorio the Magnificent, which translates to unemployed with ego, teaches you that apprentice means pack mule with harmony. You carry the lute, the spare strings, the cooking pot, and his ego, which weighs the most. In return, you get lessons between blisters. Never trust an innkeeper who smiles. Always check the ale for water before the crowd does. And most importantly, never perform sober if you can help it. Drunk audiences, he says, have lower standards and higher tips. Your first official performance is in a tavern that smells like regret and wet dog. Your backup harmony, which means you hum while Gregorio butchers a ballad about a duke who tripped over his own cape and called it strategy. The crowd cheers anyway. You learn that confidence trumps talent 9 times out of 10. The 10th time someone throws a shoe, you duck. Gregorio pockets the coins, hands you a crust of bread and says, "You're learning." You sleep under the wagon that night, lute cradled like a baby, dreaming of the day you'll have your own drunk audience. The years blur into a montage of muddy boots and mouldy bread. You travel from village to hamlet to nowhere in particular. You learn to tune the lute with frozen fingers, to sing through a sore throat, to smile when the only payment is a chicken that escapes before breakfast. You master the art of the dramatic pause, the wink that makes barmaids blush, the tragic sigh that makes widows weep. You also master hunger, the kind that gnaws at your ribs and whispers that maybe your father was right about the plough, but you improve. Your voice deepens, your rhymes sharpen. You write a song about a knight who loses his horse to a turnip thief. Pure fiction, but the crowd eats it up. Literally. Someone throws a turnip, you catch it this time. Dinner. Gregorio nods approval, which is as close to praise as he gets. One night, after a particularly rowdy gig where you juggle 3 mugs while singing in harmony, he claps you on the shoulder. "You're ready," he says. You beam. He means ready to carry his laundry for another year. But you don't know that yet. You start composing your own material. A ditty about a priest who mistakes a goat for the devil. A lament for a maiden whose dowry is 3 chickens and a bad cough. You perform them in barns, alleys, once in a graveyard because the acoustics are divine and the audience doesn't talk back. The dead are your kindest critics. You dream of courts and castles, of nobles tossing gold instead of vegetables. You dream of a bed that isn't shared with fleas. You dream of a name that isn't Boy or You There. Then one frostbitten morning, Gregorio announces you're going solo. You imagine fanfare, a tearful farewell, maybe a gift. Instead, he hands you half a songbook, pages missing, a lute with 1 string that sounds like a dying cat, and a pat on the back that feels like eviction. "Don't die," he says. "Dead apprentices are bad for the resume." He rides off without looking back. You stand in the mud, alone, clutching your future like a broken promise. Your first solo gig is in a tavern called the Leaky Cauldron, which is exactly as glamorous as it sounds. The stage is a table that wobbles like it's drunk. The audience is peasants who think culture is a type of mould. You tune the lute with shaking hands. Someone yells, "Play something we know." You don't know anything they know. You launch into your best ballad, a tragic tale of a knight who wins a tournament and loses his maiden to a better dentist. 2 lines in, someone burps in key. By verse 3, a fight breaks out over whether you're brilliant or awful. You take it as a compliment. You dodge a flying crust, smile through the heckling, and finish with a flourish that earns silence. Then 1 coin. It misses your hand and rolls under the table. You fish it out, thank the thrower, and bow like you meant it to happen. The innkeeper offers you a corner of the kitchen to sleep in, provided you scare the rats with your singing. You agree. That night, curled up beside sacks of onions that smell better than you do, you realise something profound. You survived. You're a bard now. Poor, itchy, and probably going to die of something preventable, but a bard. The road stretches ahead, endless and unforgiving. You trudge into it with a lute on your back and a song in your heart, both slightly out of tune. You don't know it yet, but you're about to learn that fame is a myth. Nobility is a scowl, and the only thing that pays consistently is flattery. But that's for later. Right now, you're young, stupid, and convinced the next village will be different. Spoiler, it won't. But you'll sing anyway, because that's what bards do. You sing through the hunger, the cold, the turnips to the face. You sing because for one brief moment the world listens. And in a life measured in blisters and bad bread, that's enough. You walk until your feet bleed, then keep walking because stopping means thinking. You think about the hut, the plough, the life you left. You think about the bard who taught you everything and nothing. You think about the song you'll write tomorrow, the one that will finally make them listen. You don't know that tomorrow will bring rain, bandits, and a tavern that pays in promises. You don't know that your voice will crack, your fingers will swell, your dreams will shrink to the size of a dry sock, but you walk anyway. Because the alternative is going back, and back is a place where music goes to die. So you sing. To the crows, to the clouds, to the empty road that doesn't care. You sing about love you've never had, gold you've never seen, glory you'll never touch. You sing because your mother taught you that hope is a song you keep singing even when no one's listening. You sing because the priest was wrong. Music isn't witchcraft, it's survival. And you, muddy, hungry, ridiculous you, are going to survive. The first winter alone is a special kind of hell. You learn that snow's just water with commitment issues. You learn that inns charge double when you look desperate, which is always. You learn that your lute sounds better when you're too cold to feel your fingers. You perform in a village where the only heat comes from body odour and suspicion. The crowd pays you in silence in a bowl of something that might be soup or might be punishment. You eat it anyway. You sleep in a stable, sharing hay with a horse that judges you. You wake up with frost in your beard and a song in your head about a knight who defeats winter with sheer stubbornness. You sing it to the horse. He doesn't applaud, but he doesn't kick you either. Progress. Spring comes like a drunk friend, late, loud, and covered in mud. You follow rumours of a fair where bards compete for a purse of silver. You arrive to find the purse is 3 coppers and a ham bone. You compete anyway. You sing your heart out, dodge a cabbage, and place second to a juggler who swallows fire in his own dignity. The ham bone is delicious. You write a song about it. The juggler steals it. You learn that bards are worse than bandits. They take your art and your lunch. Summer brings heat, flies, and festivals. You perform at a wedding where the bride is 12 and the groom is 60. You sing about eternal love and try not to cry. The groom pays you in wine. You drink it. You wake up in a ditch with a goat licking your face. You name the goat Melody. She follows you for 3 days before joining a herd. You write a ballad about lost love. It's your best yet. Autumn paints the world in fire and regret. You walk through forests where the leaves fall like applause you'll never earn. You sing to travellers who toss you crumbs and stories. One tells you of a castle where the Lord pays bards in gold. You head there immediately. The castle is real. The Lord is real. The gold is a myth. You sing anyway. The Lord's daughter blushes. The Lord's wife smirks. The Lord's guards sharpen their knives. You leave with a loaf of bread and a story about the time you almost died for a smile. Winter returns, meaner than before. You hole up in a monastery where the monks pay in silence and soup. You copy hymns by candlelight, your fingers stained with ink and frostbite. You sneak wine from the cellar and write a song about a monk who falls in love with a goat. You sing it to the goats. They approve. The abbot does not. You leave before dawn, taking a wheel of cheese and a vow of silence you break immediately. Years pass like bad chords, jarring, unresolved, but part of the song. You grow a beard that hides the scars. Your voice deepens into something that makes barmaids swoko masiawi and innkeepers pay up. You learn to read a crowd like a book, to flatter a noble without vomiting, to dodge a thrown mug with grace. You write songs that travel faster than you do, sung by strangers who don't know your name. You're forgotten and remembered in the same breath. You perform for kings who yawn, peasants who weep, children who dance. You sleep in castles and ditches, eat feasts and feces, you lose teeth, gain stories, trade youth for wisdom you'll never use. You learn that the road doesn't care about your dreams, it only cares that you keep walking, so you walk. You sing, you survive. One night in a tavern that smells like home, cabbage, goat, regret, you sing your masterpiece. It's about a boy who leaves a hut with nothing but a song and returns a man with nothing but scars. The crowd is silent. Then they cheer. Someone tosses a silver coin, it lands in your hand. You cry. No one notices. You buy a round for the house. You sleep under the table, lute cradled like a child. You dream of the hut, the plough, the life you left. You wake up humming. You're old now, your fingers ache. Your voice cracks like old leather. The taverns are smaller, the crowds thinner, the tips more symbolic. But you sing anyway because the song is all you have. The song is all you are. And somewhere, in a hut that smells like cabbage and a goat, a child is humming your tune. They don't know your name. They don't need to. The song is enough. You walk into the night, lute on your back, stars above. The road stretches ahead, endless and unforgiving. You sing, not for gold, not for fame, just to hear your own voice echo back, just to prove you're still here. The wind carries your song to villages you'll never see, to children who'll never know you. You smile, you sing, you walk, and somewhere in the dark between stars a goat bleats in harmony. You wake under the wagon with frost in your eyelashes and Maestro Gregorio's boot nudging your ribs. Up, pack mule, he grunts. We've got 3 villages and a hangover to outrun. The sky is the colour of old pewter, the kind that promises rain and disappointment in equal measure. You roll to your feet, every joint complaining like a poorly tuned lute string. Your apprenticeship officially began the moment you left the mud hut behind, Nico, but it feels more like indentured servitude with a soundtrack Gregorio rides a sway-backed mare that looks as tired of him as you are. You walk, always walk. The lute is slung across his back. You carry the spare strings, the cooking pot, the patched cloak that smells like every tavern from here to the Rhine, and a sack of turnips someone paid with last week. Turnips are the medieval equivalent of loose change. Ubiquitous, unwanted, and impossible to spend on anything fun. You've learned to roast them, boil them, juggle them, and, on one desperate night, use one as a pillow. It was lumpy but surprisingly supportive. The road is a ribbon of mud that sucks at your boots like it's personally offended by your existence. Every step makes a sound like the world burping. You pass mile markers that are just piles of stones with cryptic scratches. Gregorio claims they're ancient runes. You suspect they're tally marks for how many travellers gave up and became hermits. The air smells of wet wool, horse dung, and the faint tang of Gregorio's ambition, which has a scent not unlike overripe cheese left in the sun. Your first lesson comes before breakfast. Never trust a smiling innkeeper, Gregorio says, spitting into the mud. If he's happy to see you, he's already counting the ways to rob you. You nod solemnly, though you're not sure how anyone could rob you further. You own 1 tunic, 1 pair of boots with a hole shaped like regret, and a flute you carved from a reed that now doubles as a backscratcher. Breakfast is a crust of bread so hard it could double as a weapon. You gnaw it while walking, multitasking is a survival skill. By midday, you reach the first village. It's a collection of huts that look like they lost a fight with gravity. The well is dry, the church is leaning, and the villagers eye you like you're selling plague instead of entertainment. Gregorio sets up in the square. If you can call a patch of mud with a suspicious puddle a square, he tunes the lute with the confidence of a man who's never doubted his own genius. You stand behind him, holding the spare strings like a squire holding a knight's sword, except the sword is made of catgut and the knight is a drunk with delusions. The performance begins with a flourish. Gregorio sings a ballad about a duke who fell off his horse and somehow landed in legend. You provide backup harmony, which means you hum in a key that's close enough to count. The villagers gather slowly, drawn by the novelty of anything that isn't turnips. A child pokes you with a stick. You smile through it. Professionalism. Halfway through the second verse, it starts to rain. Sideways, because the wind has opinions. The lute warps. Your tunic clings. Gregorio powers through, voice rising above the downpour like a man arguing with God. The crowd cheers when he finishes, mostly because it means they can go inside. Payment is 3 coppers and a chicken that looks like it's plotting revenge. Gregorio pockets the coins. You get the chicken. It escapes before you can name it. Lesson 2. Instruments are expensive, apprentices are not. That night you sleep under a hedge while Gregorio snores in the wagon. The chicken, now dubbed Sir Clux-a-Lot, pecks at your hair. You consider eating it. Instead, you write a song about a knight who loses his honour to poultry. It's catchy. Gregorio steals it the next morning and claims he wrote it in a fever dream. You learn that credit is like soap, rare and usually stolen. The routine solidifies. Wake, walk, perform, dodge projectiles, sleep in increasingly creative locations. You've bunked in barns, under bridges, once in a pigsty where the pigs were better conversationalists than Gregorio. You learn to tune the lute by ear, to sing through a cough that sounds like a dying goose, to smile when the only applause is the wind. You also learn the golden rule of medieval travel: never eat the mystery stew. It's always mystery for a reason. One week blurs into the next. You cross rivers on ferries that look one sneeze away from sinking. You climb hills that mock your calf muscles. You perform in taverns where the air is 90% smoke and 10% regret. Gregorio teaches you the art of the dramatic pause. Hold it just long enough for the drunkest patron to fill the silence with a burp, then hit them with the chorus. It works every time. You start to understand rhythm in a new way. It's not just notes, it's timing, breath, the space between heartbeats where magic lives. You pick up tricks: how to make a 3-string lute sound like 5, how to turn a heckle into a harmony, how to flatter a barmaid without getting slapped, usually. You write your own verses in the margins of Gregorio's songbook, Tiny Rebellions in ink. A ditty about a lord who taxes farts, a lament for a maiden whose dowry is a wheel of cheese with a bite taken out. Gregorio finds them, laughs, and adds them to his act without credit. You stop writing in the book. You start carving lyrics into turnips instead. They're biodegradable and harder to steal. Winter arrives like a tax collector, early and unwelcome. The roads freeze into ruts that trap your boots. Your fingers swell around the lute strings. You perform in a monastery where the monks pay in silence and watery gruel. You copy psalms by candlelight, your breath fogging the parchment. You sneak into the wine cellar and write a hymn to Bacchus that accidentally becomes a hit with the novices. The abbot bands music. You leave with a wheel of cheese and a vow to never trust a man in a robe. Spring thaws the world into a swamp. You wade through mud that tries to adopt your boots. You perform at a fair where the prize is a pig. You come in second to a juggler who swallows swords and his pride the pig escapes. You name it Sir Oinks a lot in memoriam. Gregorio sells your spare tunic for ale. You perform shirtless. The barmaids tip extra. You learn that humiliation is a currency. Summer brings heat that makes the lute strings snap like overcooked noodles. You perform at a wedding where the bride is 12 and the groom is 60. You sing about eternal love and try not to gag. The groom pays in wine. You drink it. You wake up in a ditch with a goat licking your face. You name her Melody. She follows you for 3 days before joining a herd. You write a ballad about lost love. Gregorio steals it. Autumn paints the forests in fire. You walk through leaves that crunch like applause. You perform for travellers who toss you crumbs and stories. One tells you of a castle where the lord pays bards in gold. You head there. The castle is real, the lord is real, the gold is a myth. You sing anyway. The lord's daughter blushes. The lord's wife smirks. The lord's guards sharpen knives. You leave with bread and a story. Years pass. You grow a beard that hides scars. Your voice deepens. You learn to read crowds, flatter nobles, dodge mugs. You write songs that travel faster than you. You are forgotten and remembered in the same breath. One night, in a tavern that smells like home, you sing your masterpiece. It's about a boy who leaves a hut with a song and returns a man with scars. The crowd is silent. Then they cheer. Someone tosses silver. It lands in your hand. You cry. No one notices. You buy a round. You sleep under the table, lute cradled. You dream of the hut, the plough, the life you left. You wake humming. Gregorio announces you're ready to go solo. You imagine fanfare. He hands you half a songbook, a broken lute string, and a pat on the back that feels like dismissal. Don't die, he says. Dead apprentices are bad for business. He rides off. You stand in the mud, alone, clutching your future like a bad cord. You walk into the night, lute on back, stars above. The road stretches, endless. You sing, not for gold, not for fame, just to hear your voice echo, just to prove you're here. The wind carries your song to villages you'll never see, to children who'll never know you. You smile, you sing, you walk. You stand outside the leaky cauldron, lute slung over one shoulder, heart hammering like a drunk blacksmith. The tavern sign creaks in the wind, a wooden mug leaking paint the colour of old blood. Inside, the air is thick with smoke, sweat, and the ghosts of 1,000 spilled ales. You've rehearsed this moment in barns, alleys, and once to a particularly judgmental cow. Now it's real. No Gregorio to hide behind, no backup harmony to save you. Just you, a rickety table that's one sneeze from collapse, and a crowd that looks like they'd rather fight than listen. You step through the door and the noise hits like a wet blanket. Men shout over each other, dice clatter, a dog barks in a key that offends music itself. The innkeeper, a mountain of a man with a beard that could hide a family of squirrels, points to the table in the corner. "Stage," he grunts. "Don't break it." Don't bleed on it. Don't bore them, or I'll toss you out with the slop. You nod, throat dry. You climb onto the table. It wobbles. You wobble. The crowd doesn't notice. They're arguing about whether the miller's wife is flirting with the blacksmith or just has something in her eye. Again, you clear your throat. Someone yells, "Don't ruin the mood." You're not sure there is one. You tune the lute with fingers that feel like sausages. The strings are new, well, new to you. Gregorio sold you his old set for the price of a small kingdom. One string buzzes like an angry bee. You smile like it's intentional. Confidence, you remember. Audiences remember confidence, not accuracy. You launch into your opener. A cheerful ballad about a knight who wins a tournament and a maiden who immediately regrets meeting him. You wrote it after watching a lord trip over his own cloak and call it a victory dance. 2 lines in, a man burps in perfect time with your chorus. You keep going. By verse 3, someone shouts for a song about goats. You don't know any goat songs. You improvise a line about a goat who steals a knight's honour. The crowd laughs. You exhale. Halfway through, a fight breaks out. 2 patrons arguing over whether you're brilliant or awful. You take it as your first compliment. The innkeeper bellows for order. The lute goes out of tune. Someone sneezes into your melody. It's going beautifully. You strum the final chord, bow low, and nearly fall off the table. The applause is polite. A man in the back tosses a coin. It arcs gracefully, misses your hand, and rolls under a bench. You scramble after it, thanking him anyway. Another coin follows. This one hits the floor and stays there. Someone shouts, "Sing something better." You smile through gritted teeth. That was my best one. They don't laugh. The innkeeper offers you a corner of the kitchen to sleep in, provided you scare the rats with your singing. You agree. You curl up beside sacks of onions that smell better than you do, clutching 3 coppers and a headache. You survived your first solo show. Technically, that's a win. The next gig is in a village square that smells like manure and misplaced optimism. The stage is a cart with 1 wheel missing. You prop it up with a rock and pray to the god of balance. The crowd is farmers, children, and 1 old woman who knits through your entire set. You sing about a cow that falls in love with a turnip. It's autobiographical. A child throws a pebble. You dodge. Another child throws a carrot. You catch it. Dinner. The old woman claps once. You bow like she's the queen. Payment is a handful of barley and a promise of exposure. You expose yourself to less humiliation begging. You learn fast. Taverns are battlefields. You armour up with a smile and a repertoire of crowd pleasers. You write a song about a priest who mistakes a donkey for the devil. It's a hit in every village with a priest and a donkey. You perform it in a churchyard once. The priest chases you with a candlestick. You run, singing the chorus. The villagers laugh so hard they forget to tithe. You escape with a loaf of bread and a story. You start reading crowds like Gregorio taught you. Drunk peasants want humour, slapstick, bodily functions, the miller's wife. Sober nobles want flattery, lineage, valour, hair that defies gravity. You keep 2 songbooks, one for truth, one for lies. The truth book stays hidden. The lie book pays for ale. You perform at a wedding where the bride is 14 and the groom is 50. You sing about eternal love and try not to gag. The groom cries. The bride throws her bouquet at your head. You duck. The bouquet hits a drunk uncle. He proposes to a goat. You write a song about it. It's your first encore. Winter gigs are brutal. You sing in barns where the audience is cows and the payment is warmth. You learn that cows prefer slow ballads and don't throw vegetables. You perform at a festival where the prize is a goose. You come in third to a fire eater who singes his eyebrows. The goose honks in harmony. You name it so honks a lot. It escapes. You write a lament. It's mournful and catchy. Spring brings fairs. You juggle mugs while singing. A trick Gregorio taught you. After too much wine, you drop one. It shatters. The crowd cheers. You bow like it's part of the act. Payment is a ham bone and a wink from a barmaid. You treasure both summer heats the taverns to saunas. You perform shirtless after a string snaps and takes your tunic with it. The barmaids tip extra. You learn that humiliation is a currency. You start collecting quirks. In one village, the innkeeper pays in eggs. You carry them in your hat. They break. You smell like breakfast for a week. In another, a child gives you a drawing of you as a knight with a lute for a sword. You keep it. It's the nicest thing anyone's ever given you. You perform for a lord who falls asleep mid-song. His snores are in key. You harmonize. His wife applauds. He wakes up confused. You get bread and a bed. You sleep like a king. You write a song about a bard who sings for scraps and dreams of castles. It's too honest. You perform it once in a tavern where the crowd is half asleep. A drunk weeps. You weep. The innkeeper gives you a free ale. You drink it and vow never to sing truth again. Lies pay better. Years blur. You perform in every kind of hellhole. A tavern where the floor is sticky with things you don't want to name. A square where the pigeons outnumber the people. A castle where the lord's dog humps your leg mid-chorus. You smile through it all. You learn to dodge mugs, turn heckles into encores, make a broken string sound avant-garde. You write songs that spread like plague. Catchy, persistent, anonymous strangers hum your tunes. They don't know your name. You don't care. The song is enough. One night in a tavern that smells like every mistake you've ever made, you sing your masterpiece. It's about a boy who leaves a hut with a song and returns a man with scars. The crowd is silent. Then they cheer. Someone tosses silver. It lands in your hand. You cry. No one notices. You buy a round. You sleep under the table, loot cradled. You dream of the hut, the plough, the life you left. You wake humming. You're a bard now. Poor, itchy, probably dying of something preventable, but a bard. You walk into the night, loot on back, stars above. The road stretches, endless. You sing. Not for gold, not for fame, just to hear your voice echo, just to prove you're here. The wind carries your song to villages you'll never see, to children who'll never know you. You smile. You sing. You walk. You wake to the sound of rain drumming on your cloak like an impatient landlord. The road is a river of mud that tries to swallow your boots whole. You've been walking since dawn, always walking, because horses are for people who matter, and you, dear bard, are still negotiating that status. Your loot is wrapped in oilskin that leaks in 3 places, your spare tunic is more whole than cloth, and your stomach is auditioning for the role of hollow drum. The sky is the colour of a 3-day-old bruise, and the wind smells like wet sheep and broken promises. Welcome to life on the medieval highway, pain with scenery. You trudge past mile markers that are just piles of stones with graffiti no one can read. One says, "Turn back, dragons." You laugh. Dragons would be an upgrade from bandits. You've met 3 so far. The first took your bread, the second took your dignity. The third took your hat and left you a turnip in exchange. You named the turnip Sir Root and carried it for a week until it sprouted. You planted it in a ditch. Somewhere out there a turnip grows with your name on it. The road teaches you new languages. The squelch of mud underfoot. The creak of your lute when the damp warps the wood. The whistle of wind through the hole in your boot that's shaped like a tiny judgmental mouth. You learn to play softer when wolves howl nearby, louder when peasants are drunk enough to throw coins. You learn that sleeping under a wagon is safer than in it, because wagons attract drunks and drunks attract vomit. You test this theory one night. You wake up cleaner than the wagon's occupants. Science. You share campfires with fellow wanderers, jugglers who can't juggle, preachers who can't preach, and one woman who swears she speaks chicken. You trade stories for warmth. She tells you the chickens are planning a coup. You write a song about it. She steals the chorus. You let her misery harmonizes beautifully. Rain is your constant companion. It soaks your cloak until it weighs more than your ambitions. Your lute sounds like a dying cat in a bathtub. You perform in a tavern where the roof leaks directly onto your head mid-chorus. You turn it into a percussion solo. The crowd cheers. You get an extra bowl of stew. It tastes like regret and onions. You eat it anyway. You sleep in the hayloft with goats who judge your life choices. One nibbles your beard. You name her critic. Winter tries to kill you with creativity. You hole up in a village where the only heat is body odour and suspicion. You trade songs for shelter in a barn. The cows are your kindest audience, quiet, warm and mercifully unarmed. You sing lullabies to calves and call it a concert. Payment is a corner of the manger and half a wheel of cheese that might be older than you. You perform at a wedding where the bride is 12 and the groom is 60. You sing about eternal love and try not to cry. The groom pays in wine, you drink it. You wake up in a snowdrift with a goat licking your face. You name her Melody too. She follows you for 3 days before joining a herd. You write a ballad about lost love. It's your saddest yet. Spring thaws the world into a swamp. You wade through mud that tries to adopt your boots. You perform at a fair where the prize is a pig. You come in second to a fire-eater who singes his eyebrows. The pig escapes. You name it Sir Oinks a lot in memoriam. Summer heats the roads to ovens. You perform shirtless after a string snaps and takes your tunic with it. The barmaids tip extra. You learn that humiliation is a currency. You start measuring distance in blisters. Your feet are maps of every mile you've walked. You lose a toenail to a rock. You name the rock Sir Stubborn and carry it for a week until it gets too heavy. You leave it at a crossroads with a note. Here lies Sir Stubborn, who taught me pain. You perform in a village where the innkeeper pays in eggs. You carry them in your hat. They break. You smell like breakfast for a week. In another, a child gives you a drawing of you as a knight with a lute for a sword. You keep it. It's the nicest thing anyone's ever given you. You meet bandits who are also bards. They rob you with rhymes. You duel in verse. You lose. They take your spare strings. You improvise with twine. It sounds terrible. You call it avant-garde. A noble pays you double. You learn that terrible can be profitable. You perform for a lord who falls asleep mid-song. His snores are in key. You harmonise. His wife applauds. He wakes up confused. You get bread and a bed. You sleep like a king. You write a song about a bard who sings for scraps and dreams of castles. It's too honest. You perform it once in a tavern where the crowd is half asleep. A drunk weeps. You weep. The innkeeper gives you a free ale. You drink it and vow never to sing truth again. Lies pay better. Years blur. You walk until your legs forget standing still. You perform in every kind of hellhole. Tavern where the floor is sticky with things you don't want to name. A square where the pigeons outnumber the people. A castle where the lord's dog humps your leg mid-chorus. You smile through it all. You learn to dodge mugs. Turn heckles into encores. Make a broken string sound intentional. You write songs that spread like plague. Catchy, persistent, anonymous. Strangers hum your tunes. They don't know your name. You don't care. The song is enough. One night in a tavern that smells like every mistake you've ever made, you sing your masterpiece. It's about a boy who leaves a hut with a song and returns a man with scars. The crowd is silent. Then they cheer. Someone tosses silver. It lands in your hand. You cry. No one notices. You buy a round. You sleep under the table, lute cradled. You dream of the hut, the plough, the life you left. You wake humming. You're a bard now. Poor, poor, itchy. Probably dying of something preventable, but a bard you walk into the night, lute on back, stars above. The road stretches, endless. You sing, not for gold, not for fame, just to hear your voice echo, just to prove you're here. The wind carries your song to villages you'll never see, to children who'll never know you. You smile, you sing, you walk, you smell the castle before you see it. Wet stone, roasting boar, and the faint tang of noble sweat masked by rose water. It rises from the valley like a stone giant too proud to sit down, towers stabbing the clouds, banners flapping like laundry on a rich man's line. You've heard the rumours for weeks. Lord Baldwin the Bountiful pays bards in gold, beds them in silk, and only occasionally throws them in the dungeon for the bad rhymes. You've walked 3 days through rain that tried to drown you, slept in a ditch with a goat that critiqued your snoring and traded your last clean sock for directions. Now you stand at the gate, lute polished with spit and desperation, tunic patched so many times it's a quilt of regret. The guards eye you like a turnip that learned to walk. One pokes your lute with a spear. Play something, he grunts. You strum a chord that sounds like a cat falling downstairs. He waves you through out of pity. Inside, the courtyard is chaos. To servants scurry, horses clop, a peacock screams like it's auditioning for your next nightmare. You clutch your lute like a shield and try to look important. A steward with a clipboard longer than your life story leads you to the great hall. The doors swing open and the smell hits. Meat, wine and ego so thick you could spread it on bread. Lord Baldwin sits at the high table, a round man with a beard that could hide a squirrel family, and eyes that calculate your worth in coppers. His wife, Lady Eleanor, wears a gown that costs more than your village. His daughter, Rosamond, blushes at everything. His guards look like they bench-press peasants for fun. You bow so low your nose nearly kisses the rushes. Baldwin gestures with a turkey leg. Sing, bard, something uplifting. My lineage, preferably. You nod, mind racing. You know nothing about his lineage except it probably involves inbreeding and bad decisions. You launch into a ballad, you improvise on the spot, you rhyme valour with splendour, justice with lustrous, and hope he's too drunk to notice Baldwin doesn't rhyme with anything except Baldwin, which feels risky. You paint him as a lion, a falcon, a mighty river, whatever metaphor pops into your panic. He beams, guests clap politely, Rosamund sighs, the guards glare, you exhale for the first time in 3 verses. Success. Then Baldwin bellows, "Another, my victory at the Battle of Muddy Creek." You freeze. You've never heard of Muddy Creek. You improvise again. He charged heroically, sword flashing, enemies fleeing. Truth is, he probably tripped over a horse and got lucky, but that's your job. Turning mediocrity into myth, you sing of bravery, sharp steel, divine favour. The hall cheers, someone tosses a coin, it lands in the gravy. You fish it out, thank them, and pocket it sticky. Lady Eleanor requests a love song. You sing of a maiden fair as moonlight, pure as snow, definitely not sleeping with the stable boy. Rosamund blushes crimson. The guards sharpen knives. Baldwin rewards you. A loaf of bread, a mug of wine, and permission to sleep indoors. By medieval standards, that's a fortune you bow until your back cracks. Rosamund slips you a ribbon. You treasure it. The guards follow you to the servants' quarters like wolves escorting lunch. You spend the night on a pallet that smells only faintly of goat. You compose lyrics you'll never sing. O noble lord, so round of waste, whose sense of humour hath no taste. A chambermaid laughs and nearly loses her job. At dawn, you're politely booted out with a pat on the back and directions to the gate. You leave with light pockets, inflated ego, and the realisation that flattery buys dinner, but truth gets you executed. You learn the court game fast. Nobles don't want facts, they want echo chambers with rhythm. You study faces like a gambler studies cards. Compliment the right lord and get coin. Compliment his wife too enthusiastically and get defenestrated. You recycle lines. Every king is wise, every lady is the moon, every night is God's headache. Nobody notices. Nobles don't talk, they monologue. You perform at feasts where 40 sweaty knights chew loudly while you rhyme heroic with halitosis. Nobody cares. You sing for a duke who lost a battle. You call it divine strategy. He laughs, soldiers cheer, you get stew. Bards are damage control with lutes. You turn a lord's bald spot into crown of wisdom. He tips extra. You turn a lady's wart into beauty mark of destiny. She blushes. Her husband glares. You dodge a thrown goblet. One court has a pet bear. You sing it a lullaby. It sleeps. The lord declares you a wizard. You get a feather bed. You wake up with bear breath in your face. You write a song about it. It's a hit in every castle with questionable pets. You learn to lie beautifully. You sing of pure wives, brave sons, loyal peasants. You sing of victories that never happened, loves that never were. You sing until your throat bleeds and your conscience naps. You sleep in silk once. It itches. You prefer hay. It's honest. You perform for a countess who collects bards like stamps. She keeps you 3 days, feeds you cake, asks for sonnets about her eyebrows. You comply. Her husband returns early. You escape through a window. You land in a moat. You smell like fish for a week. You write a ballad about doomed love. It's your most requested. Years blur. You flatter dukes, serenade widows, dodge jealous husbands. You sing in halls where chandeliers cost more than your life. You sing of glory you've never seen, gold you've never touched. You sing until the lies feel true. You sing until you forget your own name. One night, in a castle that smells of wax and ambition, you sing your masterpiece. It's about a bard who flatters kings and starves anyway. The lord laughs, thinking it's about someone else. He tosses gold. It lands in your lap. You cry. No one notices. You buy wine for the servants. You sleep in the stable, lute cradled. You dream of the road, the mud, the life you left. You wake humming. You're a court bard now, well-fed, well-dressed, probably still dying of something preventable. You walk into the dawn, lute on back, ribbon in pocket. The road calls, you answer, you sing, not for gold, not for silk, just to hear your voice echo, just to prove you're here. The wind carries your song to peasants who'll never see castles, to children who'll never know your name. You smile, you sing, you walk. You're halfway through a jaunty tune about a knight who mistakes a windmill for a dragon, when a new lute answers from the shadows of the tavern. The notes are cleaner, faster, and worst of all yours. The culprit steps into the firelight, a bard with a velvet doublet, oiled curls and a smirk sharp enough to shave with. He finishes your chorus, adds a flourish you never thought of, and the crowd roars for him. You stand frozen, mouth open like a fish that just discovered water is wet. Welcome to the bardic battlefield. No swords, no shields, just rhymes and pettiness. His name is Lucien the Luminous, which is medieval for smug parasite with good teeth. He bows to the room, winks at the barmaid who used to wink at you, and announces he'll favour us with an original. It's your windmill song, rewritten to make the night look braver, the dragon dumber, and you non-existent. The crowd eats it up. Someone tosses him a silver coin. It lands in his perfectly manicured hand. You clutch your 3 coppers and feel them turn to lead. You learn fast that bards don't share. They steal, gossip, and compete like pop stars without royalties. There's a hierarchy. Tavern drunks at the bottom, semi-tolerated wanderers like you in the middle, and court favourites like Lucien at the top, perfumed, smug, and paid in actual gold. You all hate each other equally. Lucien spreads rumours that you plagiarised a hymn, you counter that he was caught serenading a goat. It's not true, but it's believable, and that's what matters. The rivalry escalates. In a crowded market square, you face off in an impromptu verse duel. The peasants form a circle, betting turnips and insults. You open with a limerick calling Lucien a tuneless toad in velvet clothes. He fires back, rhyming bard with coward. The crowd ooze. You feel your face burn hotter than the blacksmith's forge. You retaliate with a stanza about his lute being strung with his mother's hair. Unkind. But the meter is perfect. He ends with a couplet so savage the blacksmith's wife faints. You lose. The crowd laughs, the kind of laugh that stings worse than nettles. You force a smile, bow and vow revenge. Bards don't kill outright. They ruin reputations. You spread stories. Lucien can't sing sober. His masterpiece was ghost-written by a monk. His curls are a wig made from horsetail. None of it's true, but peasants love gossip the way they love ale, messy and often. Lucien counters with tales of you busking naked after losing a bet. You did perform shirtless once, but context is for historians. Your songs sharpen, your humour darkens, your performance is meaner. You stop writing love ballads and start writing triumphs, mostly imaginary. You carry a knife now, not for bandits, for the competition. You practice insults in perfect iambic pentameter. You learn to smile while sliding a verbal dagger between ribs. You duel in taverns, markets, once on a ferry, where the boatman referees for a copper. You win some, lose more, but every bout hones your edge. You turn a heckle into a harmony, a sneer into a stanza. You become a weapon disguised as a minstrel. One winter you track Lucien to a duke's feast. He's the star, naturally, lounging on a velvet cushion while you're wedged between the cook and a sweaty knight. He sings your goat serenade rumour as fact. The duke laughs so hard wine shoots out his nose. You wait until dessert, then launch a ballad about a peacock-strutting bard who mistakes flattery for talent. You rhyme luminous with presumptuous and curls with horse girl. The duke roars. Lucien's face goes the colour of beetroot soup. You get an extra pudding. Lucien gets the dungeon for insolence. You visit him with a turnip. Symbolic, you say. He doesn't laugh. Spring brings a festival where bards compete for a purse of silver Luciens there. Curls shinier, smirk sharper. The rules: 3 rounds, love, war, insult. You draw love first. You sing of a maiden who loves a bard until she hears him sing the crowd howls. Lucien counters with a sonnet so syrupy it could rot teeth. He wins the round. War is next. You sing of a knight who fights dragons with bad rhymes. Lucien sings of a hero who slays bards with silence. Tie. The insult round is brutal. You call him a lute string liar with a voice like a dying duck. He calls you a muddy-booted mute who'd lose a duel to a mute swan. The crowd votes with applause. You win by a hair, literally. A barmaid pulls one from Lucien's wig to break the tie. You claim the purse, but Lucien claims your best song, performs it better the next week. You claim his cloak in retaliation. It's velvet. You sleep in it like a king. You wake up itchy. You write a song about noble fabrics and noble fleas. It's a hit in every tavern with bedbugs. Years blur. You duel across the land, trading verses like blows. You ruin his reputation in one county, he ruins yours in the next. You collaborate once, drunk on festival wine, and write a duet so beautiful the crowd weeps. You wake up sober and burn the sheet music. Some things are too dangerous to exist. One night, in a tavern that smells like every feud you've ever had, you face Lucien for the last time. The prize, a contract with a duke who pays in gold and silence. The crowd is packed, the ale flowing, the tension thick enough to chew. You sing of a bard who rises from mud to legend. Lucien sings of a bard who falls from grace to goat food. You trade insults in rhyme until the rafters shake. The final couplet. You rhyme luminous with doofus. He rhymes bard with fraud. The crowd is silent, then they cheer. For you. Lucien bows, gracious in defeat, and vanishes into the night. You never see him again. Rumour says he joined a monastery. You write a hymn about it. The monks love it. You're the champion now. Poor, itchy, probably dying of something preventable, but champion. You walk into the dawn, lute on back, velvet cloak itching. The road calls. You answer. You sing, not for gold and not for revenge, just to hear your voice echo, just to prove you're here. The wind carries your song to villages where Lucien's name is forgotten, to children who'll never know the duel. You smile. You sing. You walk. The letter arrives on a horse that looks like it's seen better centuries. The wax seal is crimson, heavy, and stamped with a crest you've only ever sung about, a star rampant on a field of gold. The messenger doesn't dismount. He just tosses the parchment like it's a bone and you're a starving dog. You catch it mid-air because bards have reflexes or die trying. The parchment smells of parchment, beeswax, and the kind of money that doesn't jingle. It clinks. You break the seal with a thumbnail that's more dirt than nail. To the bard of the muddy boot, His Royal Majesty King Aldrich the Just, etc., etc., commands your presence at court for the Grand Jubilee. Sing well and be rewarded, sing poorly and be forgotten. Bring your own lute. Chancellor Reginald the Verbose. You read it 3 times. The first time you think it's a prank, someone's idea of bardic hazing. The second time you notice the royal seal isn't wax, it's gold leaf. The third time you realise forgotten probably means beheaded. You pack immediately. 1 spare tunic, the velvet cloak you stole from Lucien, still itchy, and the lute you've patched so many times it's 40% original wood and 60% spite you leave the turnip. Serene has a family now. The journey to the capital takes 9 days. You walk 8 of them. On the 9th, a merchant's cart takes pity on your blistered feet and lets you ride in the back with sacks of onions that smell better than you do. You serenade the onions. They don't tip. The city gates rise like a stone mouth ready to swallow you whole. Guards in polished mail check your letter, your lute, and, suspiciously, your teeth. They wave you through. The city is a riot of colour, stink and noise. Fishmongers screaming, silk merchants whispering, children pickpocketing with the precision of surgeons. You clutch your lute like a baby and follow the steward who materialises like a bad omen in velvet slippers. The palace is obscene. Gold on the walls, gold on the floors, gold in the chamber pots, probably. You're led through corridors where tapestries depict battles no one remembers and ancestors no one liked. Courtiers glide past in gowns that rustle like gossip. They smell of rosewater and contempt. You smell of road, onions and fear. The steward deposits you in a chamber the size of your childhood village, a bed with actual sheets, a basin with actual water, a mirror that shows you a man with a beard that could hide a badger, and eyes that have seen too many turnips. You wash. The water turns brown. You wash again. It turns less brown. Progress. The Grand Jubilee is a 3-day orgy of excess. Day 1. Feasting. You sing between courses while nobles throw bread at each other and laugh like hyenas with trust funds. You rhyme venison with treason, and hope no one notices King Aldrich is a mountain of a man with a beard that could host a parliament of birds. He nods approval. You exhale. Day 2. Tournament. You perch on a balcony and narrate the jousts in verse Sir Reginald the Red unseats Sir Geoffrey the Green. You call it a clash of verdant valour and crimson catastrophe. The crowd roars. Geoffrey's wife faints. You get an extra pudding. Day 3. The masquerade. You wear a mask made from a potato sack because subtlety is for people with budgets. You sing a masked love song. A mysterious lady in silver dances with you. Her perfume is intoxicating, her grip is bruising. You realize too late it's the queen. You bow so low your mask falls off. She laughs. You live. The king summons you to the throne room at dawn. The hall is empty except for echoes and the faint smell of last night's wine. Aldrich sits on a throne carved from a single oak and probably a dozen peasants' dreams. He gestures you forward. "Bard," he rumbles, "you've amused us. Name your reward." You open your mouth. Nothing comes out. You've sung of gold, glory, and maidens fair, but never asked for anything. The silence stretches. A guard coughs. Finally you croak, "A song, your majesty. Let me write the song of your reign." It's bold, it's stupid, it's all you have. Aldrich studies you like a butcher studies a side of beef. Then he laughs, a sound like thunder in a barrel. "Granted, but it better be good, or I'll use your lute for kindling." You bow until your forehead kisses the marble. You're dismissed with a wave and a purse so heavy it could anchor a ship. Gold. Actual gold. You count it in your chamber. 50 coins. Enough to buy a village or a very small horse. You cry. The chambermaid finds you sobbing into the gold. She thinks you're drunk. You let her. You spend a month in the palace archives, reading chronicles written by monks who hated punctuation. You learn Aldrich's truths. He did win the Battle of Muddy Creek by falling off his horse into the enemy commander. He did marry the queen for love and her dowry. He did once pardon a thief who recited a limerick. You weave it all into a saga, 12 verses, 3 choruses, and a bridge that makes the scribes weep. You rehearse it in the gardens, the kitchens, once to the king's hunting dogs. They howl in harmony. You take it as approval. The premiere is in the great hall, packed with every noble who matters and several who don't. You stand on a dais that wobbles like your first tavern table. The lute is tuned with strings you bought with your own gold. You sing of mud and glory, of love and war, of a king who is mighty, merciful and mildly constipated. You leave that part out. The hall is silent. Then it erupts. Aldrich stands, tears in his eyes. He claps you on the shoulder so hard you see stars. "Bard," he says, "you're appointed royal chronicler. Stay, sing, be rich." You try to bow and nearly fall off the dais. The queen catches you. She smells like silver and danger. You thank her. She smiles like a cat who's found the cream. You stay, you sing, you are rich, you have a chamber with a door that locks, you have a servant who brings food that isn't grey. You have a title, Bard of the Realm. You have a problem, you're bored. The court is a gilded cage. The nobles are predictable. The intrigues are tedious. The queen flirts. The king drinks. The pudding is excellent. But pudding isn't freedom. You write songs no one wants to hear. About peasants who pay taxes with tears. About knights who die for borders drawn by drunk cartographers. About a bard who sold his soul for a feather bed. You burn them in the fireplace. The flames are honest. One night, you sneak out disguised as a scullery boy. The city is alive with thieves, lovers, and drunks. You find a tavern that smells like home. Cabbage, goat, regret. You borrow a lute with 3 strings and a hole. You sing your burned songs. The crowd is silent. Then they cheer. Someone tosses a copper. It lands in your hand. You cry. No one notices. You buy a round. You sleep under the table, lute cradled. You dream of the road, the mud, the life you left. You wake humming. You return to the palace at dawn. The king is waiting. He knows. He always knows. "Bard," he says, "the realm needs your voice, but a voice without truth is just noise. And your purse lighter this time, and a horse. Go. Sing. Come back when you have something worth hearing." You bow. You leave. The horse is small but will